Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by a very special guest. She's a physiotherapist and coach, Ms. Gemma Louise. How you doing today, Gemma?
I'm good, thanks, Ryan. So nice to be with you. Thank you.
Hey, I'm kind of excited to dive in what you do.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited too. Yeah.
Okay, so number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Gemma Louise?
Well, by background, I'm a physiotherapist. I've been a physio for 8 years. But really, I wanted to help people more holistically. So really connecting the mind and body. So I stepped into coaching, which allows me to do that. The reason I did that was because I went on my spiritual awakening about 6 years ago, where I really found who I was. I was able to let go of my identity of being shy Gemma from Scotland who didn't believe in myself, to feeling empowered and finally believing in myself to be able to help people in the way that I truly believe that people are needing and longing for. So yeah, I've put myself in uncomfortable positions, knowing that over the other side of it is the freedom that I really am looking for, and that's what I want to encourage others to do too.
Nice. What was that process like of taking you through, of going from shy Gemma to becoming your true authentic self?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it took courage. It took courage and commitment to myself to, sit in the fire and just move through the discomfort, confront parts of myself that I was unaware of, to look at my beliefs, my subconscious beliefs. One of the biggest barriers for me was I always felt I wasn't good enough. And it was something that, affected every aspect of my life, from friendships, relationships, job opportunities. It really, like, I felt it so deep in my soul that I never thought I would be, like right now I'm living in Vancouver, which going to Canada was always my dream. It was always my goal. Anyone who knows me from back home in Scotland knows that, yeah, Gemma always wanted to go to Canada, and I never really believed I could do it. Um, so I invested in myself. I worked with coaches. I started to do meditations. I started to really look within for the answers, because I believed that there was something about me that I had to change, and I was willing to get uncomfortable, knowing that it was worth it.
Nice. You said something right there about investing in yourself. So how important is that for our listeners to know that they to invest in yourself daily, to have that belief and to take action by doing that?
Yeah, so I mean that's the number one. Like I didn't do that for a long time because I sat with all these ideas and thinking about things and longing for, I want to be in Canada. I don't know how it's going to happen, and just like my identity at that time and when I wanted to be, they just didn't align. They didn't match up. So I either could stay in that position or that identity, that reality, or I could choose to make a change. And that's what I did. So, you know, it just takes making a choice. Like, we all have choices. It doesn't have to be that you move country like I did. It could be that, instead of like, I don't know, eating at McDonald's, you choose to go like to the grocery store and make yourself something healthy. Like, it doesn't have to, it's just those little changes that you start to build trust in yourself. And that is, that's giving yourself that love and compassion and being kind to yourself that honestly I didn't really do very much until I learned people talk about self-love, and I had no understanding or no appreciation for what that actually was or how important it was. And until I started on this journey, it didn't make sense to me. And I used to think people who said, "Oh, I love myself," were just arrogant and really, overconfident and things. But honestly, if you don't love yourself, no one else is going to love you. And that was true for me. It's not that I have a lot of love in my life, don't get me wrong, but the love that I was seeking wasn't outside of me, it was inside of me all the time.
Yeah. That's something that not everybody's taught at a young age.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, we get led down this path and just told what we're supposed to do, think, feel, and everything. And that's one thing we've never really mastered is looking within and building true, lasting confidence in yourself.
Yep.
So you've mentioned that you've wanted to live in Canada for so long. I have to ask you, why Canada of all places?
A lot of people ask me this question. And I just want to make it clear that, like, I have a great life in Scotland. My parents are in Scotland. My friends, like a lot of my friends and peers, are in Scotland. So, it's built. My foundation was built there. But my aunt and uncle live in Ontario, and I used to always visit them. And I just always had a love for Canada. The people are so nice, and I just was like, I feel this is my place. Like, I feel like there's something about it that really speaks to me. And I was always going to go to Toronto though, because I didn't know anywhere else. I'd never been to Vancouver until I moved here. So yeah, I kind of applied for a job in one of the hospitals in BC through the health authority. They came over to my university in Glasgow, told us about the opportunities, and at the time I was like a new physio grad, and I was like, wow, this looks pretty good. And then yeah, that's really what really was the start of this journey.
Nice. So just kind of all happened naturally
Yeah.
from that wish and desire.
Yep.
How big of an adjustment was it when you first moved?
It's funny you ask that, because it's crazy to me sometimes to kind of comprehend that someone without much belief in myself at the time, very shy to talk to people and make connections, it was surprisingly an easy move. Like, I actually was able to meet friends really easily who are still my best friends today after 6 years here. And, it just seems like things just worked out for me. I didn't really have any expectations, to be honest. So I do think that that's made a difference. Just being open, just being kind of, yeah, myself. That, yeah, I've just allowed the flow of things, however it's worked out. I've been okay with that. And the funny thing is, and I just want to mention this because the apartment that I'm living in right now, so downtown Vancouver, when I worked in the NHS, which is the National Health Service in Scotland in the UK. I remember looking online at different apartments and things, and this was a new build at the time in 2019. And I specifically said to my colleagues at the time, I was like, that's where I'm going to live. And I was kind of joking. I was like, oh, wow, this is an amazing building, so cool. They laughed at me. Like, not in a nasty way, but in a, yeah, sure, sort of way. Here I am. I'm actually living in that building.
Man, that's an awesome story, because how many times do we always get laughed at because of our dreams? Because people think they're ridiculous, but then you end up manifesting them just by your power of belief.
Yeah, 100%. And there's things that, looking back, I've maybe just on a whim said, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And actually it's came to fruition. But I didn't understand like manifestation and any of these spiritual kind of terms until like 5 or 6 years ago, honestly. And I'm so thankful that I now have an appreciation and understanding of spirituality and energy and frequency and how powerful our thoughts are. Because honestly, it's how I lead my life now.
Nice. What led you to study physiotherapy and go into that field?
Well, honestly, I didn't know what a physio was about. Like, I thought it was kind of just running on a pitch and helping footballers and massage their legs, So I've always wanted to be in Canada and to help people, right? So when I was at school, and I was pretty average at school, I wasn't a straight A girl at all. I was very shy, didn't put my hand up to answer questions, even though I knew the answers. And yeah, like when it came to the time that, I was applying for university and things, my mum was like, why don't you look at psychology? Because you like to listen to people, you like to help people. So I was like, why not? I have no idea what they actually do, but it makes sense. So I applied for university for physio, psychology, like 5 or 6 subjects in the health field, and I didn't get into anything. Right, I wasn't accepted to university at all. So I was a bit lost. I was like, oh, what should I do now? And then, of course, that doesn't help your belief in yourself or your confidence. So, yeah, I was like, oh, I want this amazing life and I want to be in Canada, but I'm not getting the opportunities at the moment. So anyway, I got work experience in one of the hospitals in Glasgow. And I was meant to shadow the nursing staff at the time, but then the physiotherapy department, the nursing couldn't take me, and then physio was able to allow me to shadow. So that week was the week that I decided that I'm going to be a physio. I'm going to try to get into physio school, but still I didn't have the grades to get in. So I tried, I think, 2 or 3 times. Again, wasn't accepted. Then I did sports therapy at college for 2 years, and then I got into physiotherapy. So basically, I went from, thinking along the lines of psychology, And actually, I did do a year of that at uni, but it wasn't for me at the time. And I then learned from that I wanted to help people more holistically. I wanted to help people physically and mentally. So physiotherapy was the, perfect combination. And also lots of opportunities, not just in Canada, but around the world.
Yeah. So you could easily quit in that process with all the rejection you faced.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, there was a lot of tears, a lot of like I what I'm gonna do? Like I was feeling lost. That's the way I would describe it. And I know at the time my parents were pretty anxious and worried about my future and things. I'm an only child, so they want the best for me always. And but I'm glad that all of that happened, because it happened for a reason. We wouldn't be on this call without all of those steps and going through that sort of wave.
Yeah. And we usually try to avoid the struggle, but it's usually where we're made is at in the struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What have you learned the most about body movement in regards to mental health and overall health during your time in the field?
I would say that the body reflects the mind. And it's not really in my physiotherapy schooling that I learned this about the connection between the mind and body, emotions, and how they show up in the body physically. It's really more through my lived experience and my observation of the people that I'm working with and people around me. And also the additional kind of courses and continuous professional development that I've done. But I would say that, yeah, the body reflects the mind in terms of, if someone is not feeling confident or they're not, you can immediately kind of notice that through the way they hold themselves, the way that they, even if they don't feel safe in their body, their breathing changes. They have so much tension that's held in certain areas. And so for me, it's about really helping people connect the dots that, these physical manifestations don't come out of nowhere. It's kind of an accumulation of years, sometimes months or years of, those kind of unresolved emotions, the things that we haven't processed. We might have processed them on one level, but we have to work through things on multiple dimensions.
Yeah. Why do you think exercise or any movement is not talked about as much for people struggling?
I think in some ways, I have to choose my words carefully here, but I think when you exercise, you're making a choice to do something for yourself. And I think when someone is longing to change their, whatever the situation is, whether that's health or relationships or their current reality or circumstances, then making that choice can be challenging, or making that choice can be uncomfortable. So in terms of exercise, it's ultimately the individual having to take ownership and authority over their choices and responsibility, rather than kind of, okay, I'll go see this practitioner and they can help me. So I think sometimes people forget how powerful they are, how powerful exercise is in movement, not just for their physical well-being, but of course their emotional, because we have that uprising of, good hormones and down regulation of the not so good hormones, and but yeah, I think it's sometimes easier to kind of pass responsibility off when, no matter how uncomfortable the current situation is for that individual, but it takes, okay, I want to make change. I'm ready to change here. And so that's why sometimes exercise is not the first port of call for people, I feel.
Yeah. What inspired you to say, hey, it's time to start coaching?
Honestly, my own journey. Because, so how this started was from heartbreak. I was rejected by a romantic interest and I was heartbroken, honestly. And I was thinking, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't anyone like me? Why can't I find someone like my friends and me happy? And, I was kind of in a bit of woe is me. Like, why does this keep happening to me? Like, what I now perceive as a victim mentality, to be honest. But, at the time, it was hard. It was very hurtful. So it was really the fuel that sparked the fire to look within and uncover my limiting beliefs about myself, my subconscious beliefs of not being good enough, and the self-worth. And so, yeah, then I kind of went down a rabbit hole of watching YouTube videos on like energy and frequency, and that's when I kind of got introduced to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, who I really love. And yeah, it just started to make sense. And then I met a coach who, but funnily enough, is from the same place I'm from in Glasgow, which was crazy to me. So we're good friends now. And she was the first person, I'll give her a shout out, Mel, who, really helped me to see that I'm more powerful than what I think. We all are. And so she guided me on, how to shift my beliefs and how to become aware of my thoughts and feelings, and really kind of gave me the education, like this sort of foundation of, believing in myself, but still there was still this doubt. I saw all these testimonials from different people, from Dr. Joe's work and lots of different coaches, and I was like, how can it be this easy? It seems easy. And so I did everything that Mel said. I did affirmations, I did journaling, I did meditations, I looked within, and slowly but surely I started to feel better within. Like, I started to feel whole and complete and not feel like I needed anyone or anything outside of me. So that's when I was like, I always knew I wanted to do something more than physiotherapy. I thought about doing medicine. I thought about doing a master's in psychology. Thought about doing naturopathic medicine, you name it. But then that was a turning point. I was like, nope, I'm gonna become a coach, and I'm gonna package everything from my personal experience, my professional experience, and my journey, and help others to become the best version of themselves.
Awesome. How much of an aha moment was it, like, oh man, she's from the same town as me? Maybe I'm supposed to work with this person.
Yeah, I mean, like, they say there's no coincidences, and Now I do believe that we do attract the right people into our lives, yeah, to teach us something. And I'm very grateful for for her, and also the other people that I've worked with through my journey. And yeah, what are the chances that, like, literally the same town, not just the same city, but the same area? So yeah.
Nice. What types of services do you provide?
So I do coaching, so 1-to-1, on Zoom or in person, 3 months, and it's about looking at your subconscious beliefs. So I call it the GEM method. So it stands for growth, empowerment, and motivation. So the first stage is to uncover, become aware of what are your limiting beliefs about yourself that's kind of manifesting. It could be that it's affecting your health, and it's showing up in your body. If you keep focusing on your pain, then you're likely getting pain. You're getting more pain. So it's really kind of education around the mind and body connection, the nervous system regulation. I also teach lymphatic system self-regulation techniques, so you can do them on yourself, or I can indeed do them hands-on with an in-person client. And then it's really like, it's identity recalibration or identity shifting. It's I don't like to use the word healing as such, but because for me, healing is that you're shifting identities. Like, you can't heal from the same identity that whatever the event was in your life happened. You can't heal from that place. You've literally got to let a part of you die, essentially. And so that's what the work is about. It's about an inner and outer recalibration.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge your clients face?
I would say it's rooted in confidence. So it's funny because obviously that was my main thing, and so, like, a fear of being seen, a fear of being heard, a fear of like, whether that's confidence in their outward expression or in their ability to heal their bodies, like recover from an injury or chronic pain that they might be experiencing. Because that in itself, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, you have the pain, and that it kind of exacerbates fear, and then that erodes confidence, and so I would say a lack of belief in themselves in some way, whether that's in their body's ability to heal and become the best version of themselves.
Man, I see that all the time. How people just lack confidence and they have such bad limiting beliefs about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some tips that you could give to overcome some of those limiting beliefs and develop confidence?
So, really, awareness is key. Like, awareness of, and it's not like a obsession over thoughts. It's very important that, because that can also happen, that you become like, oh, every thought, I have to catch every thought. That it doesn't have to be that complicated or that difficult, but just having a compassionate awareness of, oh, I'm thinking that thought again about my pain, or whatever the situation is that's keeping them kind of stuck. And I hear this a lot of, like, there's a lot of fear associated with pain, and sometimes the fears and beliefs that people have are not actually their own. it's a projection of like their families or other practitioners or people who have kind of instilled this fear of oh, like you might not be able to run again, or you might not be able to do XYZ again. And I think for me I don't give people false hope, but I certainly encourage them to feel more empowered. So basically, like if someone was to say to me, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this," so they, one tip would be, well, what if you just became kind of curious, like rather than saying, "Oh, I can't do this," what if we just went one step up the ladder of like, oh, well, maybe I could do this, or maybe I could run again, or whatever that, event or situation is that they want to change. So I like to help people and encourage people and empower people to look at life or their situation or their injury even through the lens of possibility rather than problem.
Yeah. How much of a problem do you think or how much do you think their problem stems from looking at the whole mountain instead of just little chunking it off into pieces and and making progress?
Yeah, so I mean, it's for me it's important to have like a goal. Okay, I've always been very goal oriented, but for a lot of people, understandably, it's very overwhelming to kind of, as you said, look at the top of the mountain when you don't know what the first step is. So that's where, like, having a coach to kind of help you through that process and kind of not hold your hand, but let you see that it's safe to take a step. We can do this together. You're not on your own. You don't have to feel overwhelmed, but also it's important that if you really want to change something in your life or your situation or body or relationship, whatever it might be, then again it comes down to a choice. Is the pain of staying where you are, like, does that outweigh the pain of change? Or because there's going to be uncomfortable, you get uncomfortable with change. There's just no other way. You either stay in the familiar and in the comfortable, or you choose to, like, there's a saying, growth doesn't happen outside your comfort zone. And that is so true. That could not be more true. And that's how I'm sitting here. Like, it's how I've been able to, like, get on camera, on social media. Like, I did a ton of work around that. Like, my fears of being seen and heard and showing up. And, like, it scared me so much to present myself, like, on social media and things like that. So yeah, it just, like, there's things that I do nowadays that, well, number one, I couldn't have done even a year ago, 6 months ago. So it's every time you get uncomfortable, you have to think, this is worth it, because I know over the other side of it is, the health or the relationship or the freedom or the joy or whatever that person is looking for. But yeah, it's like, if providing you have the right kind of support, the right strategies, the right tools, the mindset of, yeah, all you need is belief. You can honestly achieve anything if you believe in yourself. And it literally just takes taking one step forward. You don't have to, you're not going to climb the mountain right away, but each step is bringing you closer to the top of the mountain.
I love it. Great advice right there. How important is it to recognize patterns so a person can truly heal and transform?
Yeah, so, you know, patterns is one of these things that a lot of people, including myself, before I've done all this inner work and have an understanding of it, is something that people are not aware of. They're not aware of, for me, one of my patterns was rejection. I guess it's really a little bit embarrassing, but like I was rejected by a lot of men. I mean, I'm being very frank here. And yeah, like I used to think, what's wrong with me? All the kind of, yeah, thoughts of like, why is this happening to me? Even in jobs and stuff as well, I wouldn't get hired and things like that. And so that for me was something that I had to again look within and recognize is something about me that is reflecting this on my external, reality. And so what I uncovered was that I was rejecting myself in a lot of ways. And this is something that I see a lot of, that lack of kind of, self-love and self-trust. And so when it comes to patterns, like, it's important to get to the root. Like, for me, my root was, like I didn't love myself, I didn't believe in myself, and those were things that were playing out in my life in some way. But until I started to work on those things at the root, on the subconscious level, nothing changed. So patterns, like, they show up in emotions, they show up in our behaviors, our thoughts, and what I say is that it's important to think of it like a weed that you want to pull out of your garden. If you don't pull it out at the root, then the weeds are going to keep growing. But if you pull it out at the root, then you can plant new flowers, and you have a beautiful garden eventually. So I think that's one of my gifts, is to help people see what they can't see in the way of patterns. Is it that you're always working and you feel like you have to compensate for something because you didn't get that love and security when you were a child, for example. Like, people struggle sometimes to see beyond the veil of limitation, and that, this is something that we can work on.
Yeah. What role does the nervous system play in a person's pain or negative patterns?
So, the nervous system is key. So, I talk about the nervous system a lot, about like the sort of survival mode that so many of us are living in, and so, like, if you've had some, like, rejection, for example, or heartbreak, or trauma, emotional trauma, whether that's like the big T trauma or more of like the kind of like minor traumas, let's say, then all of that is held within your body and your nervous system and your lymphatic system even. So the deepest layers of your mind and your body. And so there's a reactivation of those patterns when, maybe someone says something similar that the girl who bullied you at school said, and then that reactivates that part of you that you've kind of frozen, and it's kind of been stored within your nervous system, and then that brings you into more of a state of survival mode and feeling unsafe in your body. And this affects everything. It affects your breathing, it affects the way you move, the way that you talk even. Like sometimes, like before, one of the things that would show up for me was that I felt really like as if my throat was closed up, that I couldn't speak. And it was really because of like when I was at school and things, like I was very shy. I was kind of ridiculed and bullied and all these things, as so many of us are. So that kind of like it made me retreat back into my shell time and time again. And the same with rejection, it made me smaller, smaller, smaller. So all of that was stored and, is stored within the nervous system.
Yeah. You recently released your first digital product. Can you tell us about it and how it can help our audience?
Yeah, so it's called Climb. And so really it came about someone close to me was going through some stuff, and I was experiencing and witnessing moments of panic and anxiety, and I tried to support that person as best I could in the moment, and at times it was so severe that I wasn't sure what was the right thing to do, what was going to help this person, like either calm down or to express something, release something. So really, it kind of just, I don't know, it kind of just organically came about that a lot of nervous system reset tools or interventions are focused on one sensation or a few sensations. But Climb is an integration of all 5 sensations. So it stands for connect to what you see, listen to what you hear, immerse yourself in scent, mindfully touch, and breathe in and release. So I work with people with respiratory issues as a physiotherapist. And a lot of times people who are struggling to take a breath or to calm down in those moments of panic. So I was like, okay, I want to create something that will help in those immediate moments of panic, stress, or pain, that incorporates the 5 senses. And it's quick, it's easy, you don't have to move anywhere. Because one of the things is like, I found EFT tapping very helpful. But if you're out for dinner or you're at your, work, you don't really want to be sitting doing this. So I thought, okay, how could I make something that's easy that people can do, whether they're out for dinner, they're in a room full of people, that they're not going to be drawing attention to themselves, but they can still, in those small incremental steps, create that safety for themselves, to just find safety.
Nice. What was probably your biggest challenge you faced while you were creating it?
Probably I was thinking of okay, the 5 senses are touch, smell, taste, blah blah blah. And so I was thinking of an acronym that kind of wasn't just like the, kind of things that's already out there. And honestly, I need to shout out to my parents, because it was my dad who came up with CLIMB. They've been very much a part of the development and creation of this and everything I do. So it was, we were kind of just WhatsApping, and I was saying, I really want a name for this, and then I can see the message my dad sent, CLIMB, and I was like, okay, yeah. And then I had to figure out, okay, how am I gonna, what words fit with, it was just naming it and thinking, does this fit? Does this work? I've tried it out with quite a few people now, before I kind of launched it properly. And I had, a few people that were saying, I was out for a hike the other day, and I was getting short of breath, and I used CLIMB, and I was able to calm myself down and carry on and not stress out the way that I would have before. So I'm proud of it. Yeah.
Awesome. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. So I'm Gemma Louise Physio and Coach on Instagram. You can email me as well. Gemma G Physiotherapy at gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
Not really, no. I would say just I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak with you and to share my story and things. It's just so far removed from, I would never ever have volunteered myself to talk on like a video like this, a video call, or podcast. I remember working with one of my coaches, Shan. I'll give her a shout out. And she said to me, she was like, you're gonna have a YouTube channel, you're gonna be on podcasts, and I was like, no, never. That'll never be me. But here I am.
And here you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm grateful to have you on here sharing your story. I love it.
Thank you.
All right, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with overcoming adversity?
Oof. I mean, there's a lot that I could say, but I would say that no matter what your circumstances are, no matter where you're currently at, whether that's in terms of your health or whatever situation you are in life currently, don't let that define you, and also don't let it mean that you can't move past it if you want to. All it takes is committing to yourself and making a choice that, you know, I'm willing to, pardon the pun, but your tagline or your name is Through the Fire. I'm willing to walk through the fire, you know, to get to the other side where everything that I want, the health that I'm looking for, the relationship, friendship, whatever it is on the other side. So
Exactly.
believing in yourself, having awareness of, you know, emotions, your thoughts, that you have more power, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, because, you know, they're just projecting their own limiting beliefs onto you. So that's one thing that can be tricky in this journey, and one thing that I've had to really, again, become aware of is not to buy into other people's limitations, and to believe in yourself so strongly that even people say you can't do this, it'll never happen, that you have a trust in yourself that guides you forward.
Nice. Well, Gemma, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your story.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been
All right,
fun.
guys. Yep. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.